Now, with any acoustic design, we're going to be working with acoustic engineers, and what they really care about in a speaker box design like this is the acoustic volume behind the speaker. The air behind the transducer acts kind of like a spring, pushing back against the transducer, and the less air there is, the tighter that spring becomes. Also, we have a ported design, so we have this port coming out the back. And a port acts in many ways very similarly to a passive radiator. You have a volume of air inside this port that's moving in and out of the port in sympathy with your transducer. And it moves at a different frequency than the transducer, which can tune your overall bass box design. And these are issues, obviously, we're not going to talk about here. But what the acoustic engineers need to know is the volume of the acoustic area in here and the volume of the port area, as well as some other dimensions having to do with the port. So let's figure those things out and make sure that we're always able to really easily get access to those numbers as we work on this design. So we'll start by creating a new part, the same way that we've been doing it. I'll create something on the front plane, and I'll rename this my analytical document. I'm going to right-click that and save in an external file and hit OK. And also open that up in a new window, insert part, and we'll bring in our master model as we always have. Now in this case, we do not need anything but surface bodies. So no sketches, nothing else, just the surface bodies. And we don't really need any of those surface bodies except for the big one on top. So I'm going to select the other three and delete those. I'll also grab my Surfaces tools and head up to Untrim Surface. Click this edge and we'll untrim that. And finally, head back to the Features tab and mirror this across the right plane. And once again, this is Bodies to Mirror, and I've chosen the body to mirror, and I'll make sure to knit surfaces when we do that. Now, before we go any further, let's go ahead and, first of all, assign a material to this. I'm going to make it that blue color. Head up to my Surfaces and do an Offset Surface, and offset this by 0 so that I have two of the exact same surface. And I'm going to hide that first one and apply a different color. Let's do the yellow one. Different color to this body. So if I show both of these, you'll be able to see they turn kind of green because I got a blue and a yellow right on top of each other. I'm going to hide the yellow one for now, so we're just working with the blue one. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Now let's head up to the Surfaces tab, Planar Surface, and create a planar surface that caps this hole. And hit OK. And then run it again. Now I want to grab this interior edge, and I'm having trouble doing that because there's a wall outside of it. If I right-click right on top of that edge and say Select Other, that's going to give me the chance to select that manually from a list, which is exactly what I want. Then I'll do a Knit Surface. Click this face, and we'll do that Select Other trick once again and grab that face of the interior surface and click on Try to Form Solid. Hit OK. We have a solid chunk. Let's turn that blue once again. So we now have a solid chunk, and what we want to do is measure the volume of this design, right? The acoustic volume. So to do that, we're going to create what's called a sensor. Now, if you don't see this Sensors folder at the top of your Feature Manager design tree, just right-click on the top there and go down to Hide/Show Tree Items. And at the bottom right, you'll see a parameter for Sensors. We're going to show that manually for the moment. And once Sensors are shown, you can right-click and Add Sensor. Now, the sensor type is Mass Properties. And under Properties, instead of Mass, let's choose Volume. And what do we want to measure? We'll just click on this guy, hit OK, and it's going to give us a volume now that is measured, at least for me, by default in cubic millimeters, which is really hard to read. I believe that says 2.2 million cubic millimeters, which is, that's just not very practical. Let's go up to Tools, Options, Document Properties, Units, And that's where we defined millimeters, grams, and seconds as our default units. Let's change that to centimeters, grams, and seconds. And down here under per unit volume, you'll see that we now have cubic centimeters, which is a little bit easier to read. So we now have 22,000 cc's, and 22,000 cc's happens to be 22 liters, right? Because 1 liter is 1,000 cc's. So very easy to read. Let's rename this acoustic volume. And I hope I spelled that right, because I usually spell the word acoustic wrong. I'm a terrible, terrible speller. Okay, so let's hide this solid body for the moment, once again, and show the yellow surface body that we created earlier. Now, this one is going to be the same thing, except we want to measure the port inside there. So let's go to our Sketch tab and create a 3D sketch. And we'll go to our Tools, Sketch Tools, Face Curves, just as we have before. Select this face. We want this one to be blue, not pink, and we'll do a position. Click anywhere in here, and then I'm just going to choose somewhere just inside the port. You know, it doesn't have to be anywhere specific. It's a very blurry boundary between the outside of our housing and the inside of the port. So I'm just choosing a location that looks okay. And we'll exit that sketch, head over to our Surfaces tab, Trim Surface. Standard trim, of course. We'll click the inside of this, hit OK. And then we'll fast motion through this next part because you already know how to do it. Let's add a planar surface here, another planar surface here. Do our knit surface between this, this, and this. Form a solid, hit OK. And we now have a solid body. Once again, sensors, add sensor. We're going to do a volume of this guy. Hit OK. And we could rename this our port volume, which looks great. So this is 0.9 liters, which is probably just fine for this port. One other thing, we might actually want some other kinds of sensors, right? For example, we might want to know the total length of this port from one end to another. So let's go to the Tools and down to Measure, okay? And in the Measurement Properties dialog, I can click one face, I can click another face. It'll give us a distance between, a center distance. And right here on the right is a button called Create Sensor. And when I do that, I can say distance, right? I want the distance between those two things, which is 21.53 centimeters. Hit OK. And now I have a measurement here that we could rename port length, which is 21 centimeters. Perfect. Now, there's a lot more that we could do with sensors, but I think that's good enough. Now, one last little detail. I like for the Sensors folder to hide if I don't have any sensors. So let's right-click back here and go to Hide Show Tree Items and change this from Show to Automatic and hit OK. Now, because this document has sensors, it's going to show us those, but if I go back to another document, it will not show us those, and that is exactly what we want. So we'll exit our part and our analytical scene. Let's actually just fix that in place, hide it so we don't have to look at it, and now we can move on. Anytime that the acoustic engineers want to see any data about the size of this acoustic volume, they can open up that analytical part and measure to their little heart's content. Okay, let's go back to making stuff.